Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Which is peace on Yahweh's Holy Sabbath Day. Welcome to another holy convocation that Yahweh has enjoined to us here in Stone Mountain, Georgia. As we go about to keep Yahweh's holy days, we see that there are a lot of things going on where your stance in this word will come into question, and you have to be able to explain why you believe what you believe. When we deal with this book, we find out that people like to deal with parts of this book. Some people like to deal with just the Torah, other deal with just the Old Testament, and then there are those that only deal with the New Testament. But when you deal with this, you'll find out that it is one complete story. The New Testament only confirms the things that are written in the Old. And if you just start reading any book in the middle, you will not have a clear understanding of what it is. And even if you just deal with the Torah, then even the people who claim that they deal with the Torah, they're not dealing with the whole Torah. Because if you're only dealing with the Torah, then there should still be animal sacrifices, and you find that they somehow have a reason, even though they only deal with the law, somehow they still find a reason not to do the sacrifices, and that is a problem. But before we get started, brother, would you read the oracles and entreat the angel that stands at the door to come in and sup with us, and us with him, that we may make this a holy convocation by the angel's presence.
1 Peter chapter 4, verses 7 through 11. But the end of all things is at hand. Be you therefore sober, and watch unto prayer. And above all things have fervent love among yourselves, for love shall cover the multitude of sins. Use hospitality one to another without grudging. As every man has received the gift, even so minister the same one to another, as good stewards of the manifold grace of Elohim. If any man speak, let him speak as the oracles of Elohim. If any man minister, let him do it as of the ability which Elohim gives, that Elohim in all things may be glorified through Yahshua the Mashiach, to whom be praise and dominion forever and ever. Amen. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 29 through chapter 5 and verse 4. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. And grieve not the Holy Spirit of Elohim, whereby you are sealed until the day of redemption. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be you kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as Elohim for Yahshua's sake has forgiven you. Be you therefore followers of Elohim as dear children, and walk in love, as the Mashiach also have loved us, and has given himself for us an offering and sacrifice to Elohim for a sweet-smelling savor. But fornication and all uncleanness or covetousness, let it not be once named among you as becomes saints. Neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor jesting, which are not convenient, but rather given of thanks. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. Keep your foot when you go to the house of Elohim, and be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools, for they consider not that they do evil. Be not rash with your mouth, and let not your heart be hasty to utter anything before Elohim. For Elohim is in heaven, and you upon earth. Therefore let your words be few. Exodus chapter 23, verses 20 and 21. Behold, I send an angel before you, to keep you in the way, and to bring you into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him, and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. Revelations chapter 3, verses 20 through 22. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him, and he with me. To him that overcomes will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I have also overcame and sat down with my Father in his throne. He that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says unto the churches.
All right. Now in 2 Corinthians chapter 11 and verse 22, the Apostle Saul asked a question. He said, are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. He is making this statement, and the thing is, most people who only read the New Testament, somehow they've never seen this term Hebrew Israelite. Now, we have to go into some things and understand why did he go to that extent. Now, when we go to, when we look at who Esau is a Hebrew, but he is not a Hebrew Israelite. There is a difference there. Israel is the house of Jacob, and Esau is the brother of Jacob, but not his descendant. The entire house of Israel is reckoned through the lineage of Jacob, which is called a patriarchal system. What people like to use today is the matriarch system, which is dealing with the mother. And the first thing we have to understand is this whole setup and false doctrine that we are bombarded with, saying that I am Jew through my mother. And there is no such animal according to this Torah. Now, then we have to understand what is a Jew or what is Judaism. And what we know as being a Jew is actually a erroneous term for the tribe of Yehudah. The people of this tribe were known as the Yehudis or Yehudim. The practice of their customs began to be called Judaism after the term of Jew was placed upon our people. We must understand that even if we embrace the term Jew, everybody cannot be a Jew, as it only refers to one tribe. There are 12 tribes of Israel, not 12 tribes of Jews. So today's modern term Judaism and Jew has no stable foundation as it relates to the Torah. We're going to begin today's sermon in Genesis chapter 29, and we're going to read verses 20 through 35. And the title of today's sermon is The House of Yehudah. And we're going to go into the differences between a tribe and a house. So if you really get down to what people are saying, you have to listen. You only hear references about the tribe of Judah, Benjamin, or Levi. Nobody wants you to deal with any of the other tribes because they know that they were scattered first, and they don't want to deal with that because then they would have to deal with other people being a part of their rulership. So everywhere in where people are in the land of Israel calling themselves the Jews, they are saying that they are from only that tribe. That's a problem. Everybody can't be from the tribe of Yehudah. There's a serious problem there. So it automatically leaves a great opening there, as if Yahweh has just cast off the other 9 tribes that is called Israel. Genesis chapter 29, and let's start that at verse 20.
And Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed unto him but a few days, for the love he had to her. And Jacob said unto Laban, Give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go in unto her. And Laban gathered together all the men of the place, and made a feast. And it came to pass in the evening, that he took Leah his daughter, and brought her to him, and he went in unto her. And Laban gave unto his daughter Leah Zilpah his maid for an handmaid. And it came to pass that in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And he said to Laban, What is this you have done unto me? Did not I serve with you for Rachel? Wherefore then have you beguiled me? And Laban said, It must not be so done in our country, to give the younger before the firstborn.
This, of course, is his lying excuse, because if that was the case, that's what he could have said the whole time the man was working. He realized that, and this is the thing that has happened everywhere the children of Israel go. Yahweh's blessing is upon you. But if you don't do the things that are contained in his law, then your blessing then goes to the people who rule over you. You're going to be a blessing. You're either going to be a blessing to yourself or to somebody else, but you're going to be a blessing. These people have been enormously blessed because we are here. Go ahead.
Verse 27, fulfill her week, and we will give you this also for the service which shall serve with me yet 7 other years.
Right. Now he wants to prolong this servitude because he's realized that everything this man touches becomes blessed. We built this country here. Go ahead.
And Jacob did so, and fulfilled her week, and he gave him Rachel his daughter to wife also. And Laban gave to Rachel his daughter Bilhah, his handmaid, to be her maid. And he went in also unto Rachel, and he loved also Rachel more than Leah, and served with him yet 7 other years.
And the father helped create this problem there by sneaking one daughter in the middle of the night while he's waiting and expecting for another sister. So there was already some things done there that caused some issues between these two sisters. Go ahead.
And when Yahweh saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, for Rachel was barren. And Leah conceived, and bare a son, and she called his name Reuben. For she said, surely Yahweh had looked upon my affliction, now therefore my husband will love me. And she conceived again, and bare a son, and said, because Yahweh has heard that I was hated, he has therefore given me this son also. And she called his name Simeon. And she conceived again, and bare a son, and said, now this time will my husband be joined unto me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore was his name called Levi. And she conceived again, and bare a son. And she said, now will I praise Yahweh. Therefore she called his name Yehudah, and left bearing.
All right, therefore she called his name Yehudah, and this is praised or celebrated. When we look into the Strongs, it is H3063, Yehudah, and we deal with this. This is this 4th son, and when we look at that, we automatically see the hypocrisy of both Christianity and Judaism, even dealing with the foundation, because now there are some Christians that are upset about the same-sex marriage. So then their reply is marriage is between one man and one woman. Yet they all claim that they're going to go to heaven, and heaven is based off of the sons, the 12 sons of Jacob that actually come from 4 different wives. So they have they claim they're going to go to heaven immediately, zip-tang, after they die, yet they really have a problem with the way that heaven is set up. That's hypocrisy. Then you have the Jewish people saying that I am Jew through my mother. Well, 2 of those wives are foreign. If that's the case, then we don't have about 4 tribes of Israel. Now you start to see their lies break down. When you go to look at the foundation, you'll find that these doctrines don't stand up. But because these doctrines are widely spread amongst people, we have a tendency to believe the things that we hear the most. So if we hear a very widely told lie, we will believe that it's true just because we've heard so many people say it. So then we find that all Lucifer has to do is get a few more people to tell the same lie. And he has most of us. Let's go to 1 Kings chapter 12. Now, in dealing with the house of Yehudah, of course, in dealing with those sons that we read about, each one of those sons were tribes, and those tribes were all of the descendants that came from them. So the whole setup were of the sons. What happened with women, this is why Moshe, when they had the issue about Zelophehad, these daughters, that their father had no son, and an inheritance would then skip them. So they, went to Moshe concerning that thing, and he went to Yahweh, and Yahweh said, the daughters of Zelophehad speak correct. Go ahead and give them the inheritance, but they must marry from within their father's tribe, so that the land will stay in the tribe. So this whole setup of I am Jewish through my mother, you cannot find that in the Torah. This is why you have additional writings, so-called oral law. These things go against Yahweh. You can't find them in the Torah, so they have to be written somewhere else. 1 Kings chapter 12, and let's start that at verse 1.
And Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel were come to Shechem to make him king. And it came to pass, when Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who was yet in Egypt, heard of it, for he was fled from the presence of King Solomon, and Jeroboam dwelt in Egypt, that they sent and called him. And Jeroboam and all the congregation of Israel came and spake unto Rehoboam, saying, Your father made our yoke grievous. Now therefore make you the grievous service of your father, and his heavy yoke which he put upon us lighter, and we will serve you. And he said unto them, Depart yet for 3 days, and come again to me. And the people departed.
Now, he started off right, depart 3 days. Now this should have been the time that he was counseling and fasting to get an answer from Yahweh. Go ahead.
And King Rehoboam consulted with the old men that stood before Solomon his father, while he yet lived, and said, How do you advise that I may answer this people?
So the first thing, he consults. He doesn't deal anything with Yahweh, fast, or prayer. He goes directly to the old men. But he still should have been all right. Go ahead.
And they spake unto him, saying, If you will be a servant unto this people this day, and will serve them, and answer them, and speak good words to them, then they will be your servants forever. But he forsook the counsel of the old men, which they had given him, and consulted with the young men that were grown up with him, and which stood before him.
The first thing you always hear is some kid coming home telling you, well, keeping them doing such and such. What they said, first thing you need to understand, your friends don't know jack. And you have to constantly tell your kids that all the time. Somebody said such and such. You gonna listen to the people you grew up with? They don't know nothing. So now the blind leading the blind. He had an opportunity to still get, even though he did not consult Yahweh, going to those elders who had been experienced in those things, he still should have been all right. But he didn't listen to them either. Go ahead.
Verse 9. And he said unto them, What counsel give you that we may answer this people who have spoken to me, saying, Make the yoke which your father did put upon us lighter? And the young men that were grown up with him spake unto him, saying, Thus shall you speak unto this people that spake unto you, saying, Your father made our yoke heavy, will make you it lighter unto us. Thus shall you say unto them, My little finger shall be thicker than my father's loins. And now whereas my father did laid you with a heavy yoke, I will add to your yoke. My father has chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. So Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam the 3rd day, as the king had appointed, saying, Come to me again the 3rd day. And the king answered the people roughly, and forsook the old men's counsel that they gave him, and spake to them after the counsel of the young men, saying, My father made your yoke heavy, and I will add to your yoke. My father also chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. Wherefore the king hearkened not unto the people, for the cause was from Yahweh.
Now this is the part you have to hear. For the cause was from Yahweh. This division that is going to happen from this is the judgment from his father's doing of dealing with all of these strange women and allowing all of these strange things to come into the land. So you got to be careful who you listen to. Look, he had good counsel and bad counsel. Yahweh let him hear the bad counsel. He let him hear it. So as he gets torn away with listening to the people that he grew up with who don't know jack, Yahweh used that to lead him right off. and he answered those people roughly, and they went about their way. Go ahead.
You know, brother, even with the way he approached each one of them, when he went to the elders, he said, how do you advise that I should answer these people?
Mm-hmm.
When it was his friends, how do you advise that we should answer these people?
Man.
Making them feel like they all a part of this.
Mm-hmm. And the one who had nothing in it was Yahweh. It was still leaning to fleshly who I can deal with. Because see, some people just want to be friends of whoever is in power. You know, they want to, you know, make friends of man. And when you deal with Yahweh, you're going to find that you can't make everybody happy. So you need to go ahead and get that through your head right off the rip, that everybody's not going to be happy with you. You can get in this book. Understand, there have been some, recently there are lawsuits where somebody has decided that they were going to sue Zondervan and somebody else, the major publishers, because they said they don't like their interpretation of the Bible because it makes same-sex marriage seem like a sin. Well, hell it is! So they're going to sue the publishers now. Why? But they have the law behind them now. See, this is what, see, I've heard people make this statement, well, they can make, you know, they can make it legal, but they can't make me marry. Au contraire, friend. You are 501c3. You are not allowed to speak against the government. If you are you are an agent of the government once you allow yourself to be 501c3. That is a law from the highest court of the land. All it takes is the right ones to get in there and sue that organization, and you're going to find them having those marriages right there in the Christian church. Go ahead.
1 Kings chapter 12 and verse 15. That he might perform his saying which Yahweh spake by Ahiah the Shilonite unto Jeroboam the son of Nebat. So when all Israel saw that the king hearkened not unto them, the people answered the king, saying, what portion have we in Dawid? Neither have we inheritance in the son of Jesse. To your tents, O Israel. Now see to your own house, Dawid. So Israel departed unto their tents. But as for the children of Israel which dwelt in the cities of Yehudah, Rehoboam reigned over them. Then the king Rehoboam sent Adoram, who was over the tribute, and all Israel stoned him with the stones, that he died. Therefore King Rehoboam made speed to get him up to his chariot, to flee to Jerusalem. So Israel rebelled against the house of Dawid unto this day. And it came to pass, when all Israel heard that Jeroboam was come again, that they sent and called him unto the congregation, and made him king over all Israel. There was none that followed the house of Dawid, but the tribe of Yehudah only.
All right.
And when Rehoboam was come to Jerusalem, he assembled all the house of Yehudah with the tribe of Benjamin, 180,000 chosen men, which were warriors, to fight against the house of Israel, to bring the kingdom into Rehoboam the son of Solomon.
So he ended up assembling Benjamin, so he got them, and he has Yehudah. The rest of Israel has been able to separate themselves because of this rough answer that they received. Because understand, under all of these, you didn't read about that during the time of Solomon. But as all of these temples are being built for these strange wives, you know they paying for them and they doing them right. So here is the festivity from all of that. See, that's the part you don't get. While he's doing all of that, you have to ask yourself, how do you pay for that? He keep building houses for these strange wives that he is married, so she ain't got to go all the way over there to worship her God. Just build one right here. Who built that? Who paid for that? Those people did. So they ticked off. See, it takes a while for some of that stuff to reach its pinnacle. Go ahead.
Verse 22. But the word of Elohim came unto Shemaiah, the man of Elohim, saying, Speak unto Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, king of Yehudah, and unto all the house of Yehudah and Benjamin, and to the remnant of the people, saying, Thus saith Yahweh, You shall not go up nor fight against your brethren, the children of Israel. Return every man to his house, for this thing is from me. They hearkened therefore to the word of Yahweh, and returned to depart according to the word of Yahweh. Then Jeroboam built Shechem in Mount Ephraim, and dwelt therein, and went out from thence, and built Penuel. And Jeroboam said in his heart, Now shall the kingdom return to the house of David. If this people go up to do sacrifice in the house of Yahweh at Jerusalem, then shall the heart of this people turn again unto their Adonai, even unto Rehoboam king of Yehudah, and they shall kill me, and go again to Rehoboam king of Yehudah.
It is known from the beginning that if you're going to deal with Israel, the service concerning worship has to be in that somehow. So now he's wanting to keep any service from happening here. So now he's about to do some things. Go ahead.
Whereupon the king took counsel, and made 2 calves of gold, and said unto them, It is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Behold your gods, O Israel, which brought you up out of the land of Egypt. And he set the one in Bethel, and the other put he in Dan. And this thing became a sin, for the people went to worship before the one, even unto Dan. And he made an house of high places, and made priests of the lowest of the people, which were not of the sons of Levi.
Right, now this is the divided house. Know for a fact that a divided house shall not stand. It is divided. Now you have different worship going on. You have something happening over here with the house of David, and you have something altogether different happening with Israel. So you have Yehudah and Benjamin on this side, and the rest of Israel on the other side. Go ahead.
Verse 32. And Jeroboam ordained a feast in the 8th month, on the 15th day of the month, like unto the feast that is in Yehudah.
Like unto the feast. People always want to know, do you keep whatever them things? I forgot the name of them little things they be having. These other little feasts.
Ramadan and
No, not those. The
Purim.
Yeah, Purim, all this other stuff. Look here. It's 7 golden candlesticks. You see them over there? It's 7 of them. All right, that's 7 holy days. Ain't no such thing. When you go to get a menorah, they'll say, do you want a 7 or a 9 branch? Who got them other 2 branches? Where they come from? The number of completion is 7. 7 days in creation. Yeshua in Isaiah 11 verse 1 and 2 has 7 spirits. He got all 7 spirits. Then there's 7 holy days. Where you get the 9 from? Who them other 2 dudes? Them other 2 spirits right there. Who them other 2 spirits? You can keep them 2 spirits at your house. Don't bring them 2 other spirits in here. Check your demon at the door. If you come in here, you got 2 other little spirits, go ahead and tie them up by the front door. Tell them, I'm going here, I'm going to serve. And then I'll come back out, and then we'll let you free, and we can run all out of. Don't bring them other 2 spirits in here. Where they come from? They don't come from here. So there's something wrong. He ordained. What do you mean he ordained? See, this didn't come from Yahweh. So people want to know, do you keep this feast of the Jews? No, I don't keep that because that's not listed in Leviticus. That's not in the Torah. Where do you get that from? Right. It came out of the mind of men. You keep that. Go ahead.
And he offered upon the altar. So did he in Bethel, sacrificing unto the calves that he had made, and he placed in Bethel the priests of the high places which he had made. So he offered upon the altar which he had made in Bethel the 15th day of the 8th month, even in the month which he had devised of his own heart.
Right. Go ahead.
And ordained a feast unto the children of Israel, and he offered upon the altar and burnt incense.
All right. Let's go to 1 Kings chapter 13. We're going to let's go to chapter 13 and start that at verse 33. The thing that we have to deal with is the difference between a tribe and a house. And as we deal with the joining of these 3 tribes that we're about to read, then you'll find that this is Yahweh's governing system, why those 3 are contained together. And it's the same way that man has set up his thing. Here in this land, we have 3 branches of government. Does anybody remember what those are?
Judicial.
Congress and the Senate. Okay.
Legislative and
Y'all speaking in tongues. That's what it is. I need an interpreter.
executive.
Judicial, legislative, and executive. Okay. Executive would be the rulership. That would be the House of Yehudah. You have to understand how they have things set up according to, they'll take our setup and feed it back to us. We then have the legislative who makes the laws. That would be Levi, dealing with the law. Now, of course, ours is a little bit intermingled because they also deal with judgment inside of Israel. Then you have the judicial branch, which would then be, you have, ours would be Benjamin, the warriors who deal with judgment outside of Israel. So when it comes down to dealing with ours, it's going to be Levi dealing with the law and that judgment. But you have those three branches there, and you have those three branches that are set up in ours, and you're going to see how Levi then ends up coming over to Benjamin and Yehudah. Let's start that at verse 33.
After this thing, Jeroboam returned not from his evil way, but made again of the lowest of the people priests of the high places. Whosoever would, he consecrated him, and he became one of the priests of the high places. And this thing became sin unto the house of Jeroboam, even to cut it off, and to destroy it from off the face of the earth.
All right, now let's go to 2 Chronicles chapter 11. So now the priests are, this is supposed to be their job, but he's worrying about his rulership. So he makes everybody priest. Anybody can be a priest. And you'll notice in a lot of things when you're trying to do some research, you'll hear some people that have some issues with certain things that are in the Bible, and they'll say, the Samaritan copy says this. And they'll keep telling you about the Samaritan copy. Understand who these people were. Understand who the Samaritan priests are. They could be anybody. Because they made priests of anybody. That's like, you know, just hey, this guy got a house on a hill. You be a priest. What? Yeah, wait, because everybody can see your house. Yeah, man, but I don't know nothing about it. Don't worry about it. I don't know nothing about it either. Go ahead.
2 Chronicles chapter 11 and verse 1. And when Rehoboam was come to Jerusalem, he gathered of the house of Yehudah and Benjamin 180,000 chosen men, which were warriors, to fight against Israel, that he might bring the kingdom again to Rehoboam. But the word of Yahweh came to Shemaiah, the man of Elohim, saying, Speak unto Rehoboam the son of Solomon, king of Yehudah, and to all Israel and Yehudah and Benjamin, saying, Thus said Yahweh, You shall not go up nor fight against your brethren, return every man to his house, for this thing is done of me.
All right, we know that part. Let's go.
And they obeyed the words of Yahweh and returned from going against Jeroboam. And Rehoboam dwelt in Jerusalem and built cities for defense in Yehudah. He built even Bethlehem and Etam and Tekoa and Bethzor and Shoko and Adullam and Gath and Marsha and Ziph and Adoram and Lachish and Azekah and Zorah and Ayalon and Hebron, which are in Yehudah and in Benjamin, fenced cities. And he fortified the strongholds and put captains in them, and store of victual and of oil and wine. And in every several city he put shields and spears and made them exceeding strong, having Yehudah and Benjamin on his side.
The two very strong. Benjamin are the warriors, and Yehudah, they are the kings. So understand, the kings come out of Yehudah, the warriors come out of Benjamin. So you got two branches of government right here. Go ahead.
And the priests and the Levites that were all in Israel restored to him out of all their coasts. Resorted to him out of all their coasts.
Now, understand what this is. The Levites are to be spread out. The whole misconception is that there's this one big temple and everybody comes to it. Do you not understand how big the land of Israel was and that it was spread out? There are different temples in every place. There's not one temple. You got to get this thing out of your head, because this is what the imposter wants you to believe, that there is this one house. Understand something. All of Israel was spread out because there must be a priest in every tribe, in every place. For the major events, they came to the main temple. For everything, if a man got to go and pray to Yahweh, he got to go 300 miles over here with no mass transit. You have any idea how long that would take? So the priest, why do you think Levi does not have land? Everybody else has land. Levi doesn't have a land. He's spread out amongst all the tribes. This is what I keep trying to explain to people I teach. There ain't no guarantee that we're going to be together. You keep saying, well, Sodom, no, you might not be nowhere near me. Who's to say that Yahweh is not having, who's to say you're not a Levite? And then Yahweh turned around and said, I know all y'all been trained, now spread out. You go here, you go here, you go there. But wait, what's I going that way? I ain't got my nose, I ain't go out there. I ain't get my nose. No, I made sure you knew it. That's not my problem. Ain't no guarantee we gonna be together. What purpose does it do for all of y'all to know what you know, and then we all stick together, and all these people out here are sitting in darkness? Spread out. So this is the way this was done. This is why they were all spread out. So get this thing out your head, because people want to keep showing you that there's this one temple, and that was it. All of the rest of Israel have land. Go through the part where it starts reading about the land. There is no land for Levi. That's why even the churches today have that little house that was connected to it. They lived around the temple. The temples were everywhere, because they would be constantly serving inside, doing that service, so they was always near to it. Go ahead.
2 Chronicles chapter 11 and verse 11. And he fortified the strongholds and put captains in them, and store of victual and of oil and wine. And in every several city he put shields and spears, and made them exceeding strong, having Yehudah and Benjamin on his side. And the priests and the Levites that were all in Israel resorted to him out of all their coasts. For the Levites left their suburbs and their possession, and came to Yehudah and Jerusalem. For Jeroboam and his sons had cast them off from executing the priest's office unto Yahweh.
Right. This was the reason they were all amongst Israel. Now, they can't do their job, so now they are coming in. Go ahead.
And he ordained him priest for the high places, and for the devils, and for the calves which he had made.
Right. So now you have the three branches of government all still together. You have Judah, Yehudah, Benjamin, and Levi now together. Because they could not serve, they then left all of Israel and all came. So now this is a divided house, and all the Levites are now with Dawid. The house of Dawid. That's not how it's supposed to be. People want to give you this thing in its brokenness and tell you, hey, come to the temple, come to the temple. Yeah, all the Levites are in the same place now. That's not how that's supposed to be. That is a divided house. And that's why Israel degraded so far from the things that were supposed to be done. Because all the priests, the real priests, over here. That is a problem. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, even with that situation with them upping and moving, some people would look at that and say, well, this is Yahweh's will. I'll just stay here until Yahweh see it fit for me to do my job again.
Some people need an excuse for everything. Everything that happens is Yahweh's will. If they don't get a job, it was Yahweh's will that they didn't get a job. Did you look for one? Well, no. So how was one? So a job was just gonna come find you? Who is it? It's Job! Come on out here. We got something for you. But Job just come knocking on your door. Right. Let's go to Yohanan, chapter 4. Yohanan chapter 4, and we're going to read verses 7 through 29. So you have this difference in the way things are done now with this divided house. So you need to consider that when you start reading these things, understand, people will tell you about the Samaritan copy that says something different. They had many priests that were not of Levi. This is why Levi left them. So when you start to do your research and you run into that, understand why you're running into that. Yohanan chapter 4 and verses 7 through 29.
There cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water. Yahshua saith unto her, Give me to drink, for his disciples were gone away unto the city to buy meat. Then saith the woman of Samaria unto him, How is it that you, being a Jew, ask drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans.
So you see Samaria and Samaritans, same thing. The Yehudis, which is the real term, have no dealings with the Samaritans, the divided house. But this woman is still of Israel. Understand that. This is not just a woman of another country. This is a divided house. This is one part of Israel talking to the other part of Israel saying, how is it that you even asked me to give you water? Because, y'all don't deal with us. And I don't know why people think that's strange. We got family members that still do the same thing. They can be brother and sister or two sisters, and the feud can go on for 40, 50 years. And their kids don't like each other. We don't have no dealings. Why? I don't really know why. I just know I ain't supposed to talk to you. Go ahead.
Verse 10. Yahshua answered and said unto her, If you knew the gift of Elohim, and who it was that said to you, Give me to drink, you would have asked of him, and he would have given you living water. The woman saith unto him, Sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. From whence then have you that living water? Are you greater than our father Yaakov?
You see that? Are you greater? This is the Samaritan woman saying, are you greater than our father Yaakov? Letting you know that she is of the tribes of Israel. But they have no dealing with the Yehudis. This is part of that divided house. Go ahead.
Which gave us the well, and drank thereof himself, and his children, and his cattle? Yahshua answered and said unto her, Whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again. But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life. The woman saith unto him, Sir, give me this water, that I thirst not, neither come hither to draw. Yahshua saith unto her, Go, call your husband, and come hither. The woman answered and said, I have no husband. Yahshua said unto her, You have well said, I have no husband, for you have had 5 husbands, and he whom you now have is not your husband. In that saideth you truly. The woman saith unto him, Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and you say that in Jerusalem is the place wherein man ought to worship?
Once again, she makes another statement. Our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and you say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. Letting you know that she is of Israel. Go ahead.
Yahshua saith unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when you shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father.
Knowing that the true children of Israel were going to be cast out of the land. None of y'all going to worship at Jerusalem here shortly, because all y'all going to be thrown out. So then you have to ask yourself, well, who are those people saying that they are the Jews? Because Christ said, well, nobody going to worship. And our history books verify the things that happened in Jerusalem. Go ahead.
Verse 22, You worship you know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Yehudis. But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth.
Right. And this is what the problem is. People can't worship in spirit and in truth because they're too busy dealing with what they think, what they feel, and what they believe. They are too busy dealing with the customs and things that they were taught. If you're going to worship in spirit and in truth, that means you're going to examine some of the things that you learned growing up, and you're going to examine them against what is written. And if they don't stand up, you have to be grown up enough to cast those things away. And that's our problem. We are creatures of habit. We have learned all of these things, and we don't want to hear that we have learned something in error. And you can tell that people, if you even go home and start talking about this book and start talking about these things that you learned, your parents may then take that personally. Well, what you saying? I taught you wrong. Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm saying. That's well, you summed that up pretty good. But then they feel like they have to fight against that. But half the time they didn't know what they were teaching you. They were just giving you the stuff that was given to them, and it just passed down and passed down and passed down, and nobody asked any questions. Go ahead.
For the Father seeketh such to worship him. Verse 24. Elohim is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. The woman saith unto him, I know that the Messiah cometh, which is called Christ.
Listen, people think that it is some new thing. There are a whole lot of new so-called messianic synagogues that are popping up, and people say, well, there's a whole lot of people grabbing onto this thing. Understand something. They were spread out a divided house. She knew that there was a Messiah that was coming. Now, how does she know that? That is written in the Torah. Go ahead.
When he is come, he will tell us all things. Yahshua saith unto her, I that speak unto you am he. And upon this came his disciples, and marveled that he talked with the woman. Yet no man said, What seeketh you? Or, Why talketh you with her? The woman then left her water pot, and went her way into the city, and said to the men, Come, see a man which told me all things that I ever did. Is not this the Christ?
Right. So, consider that. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 18. And when it says, they said salvation is of the Yehudis, when you look up this term Jew, it says Judean, that is belonging to Yehudah, and in the Greek that would be G2448. So, and of course, that is in their language Ioudaos. And you see that there is no J there. Just like Jerusalem is actually Jerusalem. So we have to consider some of these things, but we will get a little bit deeper into that as we go along. Deuteronomy chapter 18, and I want you to read verse 15.
Yahweh your Elohim will raise up unto you a prophet from the midst of you, of your brethren, like unto me. Unto him you shall hearken.
Now, this is, when you read this, it is the prophecy of the Messiah. This is given by Moshe. Now, make sure y'all make your notes, because we don't have Bible trivia this week, but it's we have a lot going on. But you may end up having 2 weeks of Bible trivia next week. So you might want to keep your notes, because you're going to be questioned on this. Yahweh your Elohim will raise up unto you a prophet from the midst of you, out of your brethren, like unto me. Unto him shall you hearken. How did he deal with Moshe?
Face to face.
Face to face. So this was going to be deeper than any other prophet. This wasn't going to be somebody who had a dream. This was going to be a serious dealing. So when this Samaritan woman says these things, she's getting them from the Torah. So now people are saying, you know, there's so many synagogues now that are messianic. Why would you not be? It's in the Torah that there's a Messiah. How could you not be looking for one? See, something don't add up. Something does not add up. Let's go to Numbers chapter 12. Moshe told him right off the rip that there was a Messiah coming. And he said he was going to be different than any other prophet. He was going to be like unto him. So consider the things that happened as Yahweh dealt with Moshe. Consider those things. Numbers chapter 12 and verse 1.
And Miriam and Aaron spake against Moshe because of the Ethiopian woman whom he had married.
Now, understand, this Ethiopian, we've already done our research. The Ethiopian come out of Ham. Ham means burnt face. So if at least everything that we see, they always want to depict Moshe being a Gentile man. This is clear. If he married an Ethiopian, this was, we know what Ethiopians look like. That's a black woman. Well, understand something. There was a miracle that Moshe performed that every time they show the movie, they don't ever show that part. We'll get to that in a minute. Go ahead.
For he had married an Ethiopian woman. And they said, Has Yahweh indeed spoken only by Moshe? Has he not spoken also by us? And Yahweh heard it. Now the man Moshe was very meek above all the men which were upon the face of the earth.
This is why I tell people you need to be careful who you're hanging around, because if you are a servant of Yahweh, people end up getting familiar with you and they start running off at the mouth against you while you are not even present. And then Yahweh reach out and touch them people because of their ever-flowing lips. See, I learned how to stay away from people because I see people end up doing something to me and I look up and Yahweh has done something to them. Go ahead.
And Yahweh spake suddenly unto Moshe and unto Aaron and unto Miriam, Come out, you three, unto the tabernacle of the congregation. And they three came out.
Now imagine hearing Yahweh speak to you out of nowhere, come out. Now Moshe used to it. So it don't bother him like that. But at the same time, he's like, well, the question had to be, what did you two come from? I mean, I know you be calling me. What? And then the Miriam, you got what's here? Go ahead.
And Yahweh came down in the pillar of the cloud, and stood in the door of the tabernacle, and called Aaron and Miriam, and they both came forth. And he said, Hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, Yahweh, will make myself known unto him in a vision, and will speak unto him in a dream.
This is how prophets get their visions. Go ahead.
My servant Moshe is not so, who is faithful in all my house. With him will I speak mouth to mouth, even apparently, and not in dark speeches. And the similitude of Yahweh shall he behold.
Right. So this is the manner of prophet that they were looking for. This is why even the Samaritan woman knew of the Messiah. So when people, say, oh, this newfound thing, that there are Jews that believe in the Messiah, they should have always believed in the Messiah, for it is in the Torah. Go ahead.
Wherefore then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moshe? And the anger of Yahweh was kindled against them, and he departed. And the cloud departed from off the tabernacle, and behold, Miriam became leprous, white as snow.
So she became white. What she looked like before that? This is also the miracle that is never shown in the Moses movie, in the commandments. He stuck his hand into his bosom, and he brought it out, and it became leprous, white as snow. Then he stuck it back in there, and it became as his other flesh. Well, what was the other flesh? That's the part they don't do in the movie. Right. And if you start to deal with it, people say, oh, you dealing with color. That don't matter. If it don't matter, then why he always depicted the same way in error of what's written here? Remember, he was hid amongst the Egyptians. We know what the Egyptians, this several times we've heard, the Messiah was hid amongst Egyptians. Egyptians come from Ham, which means burnt face. How do you hide somebody amongst a bunch of burnt faces if their face ain't burnt too? That ain't much of a hide. You can't play hide and go seek and just stand in the middle of the grass and just sit there. I'm going to be real still. Man, we see you, bro. You suck at hide and go seek, man. At least you can get behind a tree or something. You just going to stand right there in the middle. You think we can't see you? Go ahead.
And Aaron looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. Verse 11. And Aaron said unto Moshe, Alas, my master, I beseech you, lay not the sin upon us, wherein we have done foolishly, and wherein we have sinned. Let her not be as one dead, of whom the flesh is half consumed when he cometh out of his mother's womb.
So now we know a little bit more about what leprosy looked like. When one is newborn and he comes out of his mother's womb. You know what a newborn baby look like? A black baby look white when he born. When AJ was born, I told Rebecca, you need to go find your baby daddy because y'all did a fine job. I don't know who this little white boy is. Who is this little white boy? Then he was born with gray eyes. I said, you need to go find your baby daddy. Because I don't know who birthed this little white baby because eyes black. All right? So I'm expecting a black baby, but that ain't what they look like being born. That's something wrong here. And people like to give you the newborn pictures of their baby. They look at my baby. You need to let him cook a little bit, sweetie. And then give me some pictures after he cooked for a little while. Because that's that raw picture right there. That's that raw picture. See, that's lovely to you. But that little rat picture not beautiful to nobody else. Okay? Let that baby get a little bit more cooking. That baby been in the dark for a long time. Let that baby get a little sunlight. Then take a picture of your little baby. And let us see the picture of your little baby, okay? All right? So don't think I'm trying to hurt your feelings if you show me one of the little rat pictures of your baby, you know, with the 2-day-old little thing with the uncooked flesh. That is exactly how they describe what leprosy looked like. See? They look like a brand new baby. Go ahead.
Verse 13. Numbers chapter 12 and verse 13. And Moshe cried unto Yahweh, saying, Heal her now, O Elohim, I beseech you. And Yahweh said unto Moshe, If her father had but spit in her face, should she not be ashamed 7 days? Let her be shut out from the camp 7 days, and after that let her be received in again. And Miriam was shut out from the camp 7 days, and the people journeyed not till Miriam was brought in again. And afterward the people removed from Hazeroth, and pitched in the wilderness of Paran.
Right, and understand, this all came about from them running their mouth. And people got to think, well, they just words, right? Your words can have you cast off from the camp if you turn around and say the wrong thing. Go ahead, bro.
No, go ahead.
Let's go to Luke chapter 16. And consider, wasn't nobody even around when they said it. Yahweh was the one that heard it. Moshe didn't come running to Yahweh. Yahweh, they talking about me. They saying such and such. Yahweh was the one that told him, hey, bro, they talking about you. I'm finna bring them all out here. He didn't run to Yahweh. Yahweh ran to him. I tell people, you have freedom of speech. Say whatever that is you feel like you got to say. But be just as manly and bold when judgment come knocking on your door. Just as bold as you were when you let it fly out of them loose lips. Be that same bold when Yahweh come visit you for it. Luke chapter 16 and verse 27 through 31.
Then he said, I pray you therefore, Father, that you will send him to my father's house.
Right. This is the tale of Lazarus. He's going through this this parable dealing with this judgment. Go ahead.
For I have 5 brethren, that he may testify unto them, lest they also come into this place of torment. Abraham saith unto him, they have Moshe and the prophets, let them hear them.
Yeah, let them hear Moshe and the prophets. First of all, you have some people that just want to deal with Moshe, which is the Torah. He says Moshe and the prophets. Understand, none of this is written yet. So let them deal with Moshe and the prophets. Those things are contained in this whole Old Testament. But you have people that'll deal with pieces of the New Testament, of the Old Testament. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And he said, no, Father Abraham, but if one went unto them from the dead, they will repent. And he said unto him, if they hear not Moshe and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded, though one rose from the dead.
If they hear not Moshe and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded, though one rose from the dead. So we have to understand that the so-called oral law goes against Moshe. Because if they were listening to Moshe, they would have already been looking for a Messiah. But the only people that are looking for a Messiah are people who know they need to be saved. If you believe you already have something, then what do you need to be saved from? Let's go to Matthew chapter 17. Matthew chapter 17, and we're going to read verses 1 through 7. So let them hear Moshe and the prophets. If they will not hear them, they will not be persuaded, though one rose from the dead. You cannot get to Christ and cast off all of Moshe and the law. If you think you got some kind of shortcut to Christ, you got this thing all together twisted. It's not going to happen. Never once have anybody started a book in the middle or a movie in the middle and understood what was going on. There are foundation things that are being set up in the beginning that don't make sense until you get to the end. So in the end, everybody gonna understand. You know, you come in the movie in the middle, and then something happened at the end, and everybody going, you like what everybody saying for? What's that? What that blue flower mean? Well, bro, you missed the beginning, bro. You know, I can't explain the blue flower, bro. You got to see that whole part. You missed a whole lot, man. It's a lot you missed. But that's just a blue flower, just a blue flower to you, because you didn't see the beginning. Same thing in this book. There's some things that's happening here in the end that people don't understand. They just think it's some magical creatures. It's just some magical stuff. It's some Lord of the Rings stuff happening in the end. They don't know nothing, man. That stuff is set up in the beginning. Go ahead.
Matthew chapter 17 and verse 1. And after 6 days Yahshua taketh Cephas and Jacob and Johanan his brother, and bringeth them up into a high mountain apart, and was transfigured before them. And his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light. And behold, there appeared unto them Moshe and Elias talking with them. Then answered Cephas and said unto Yahshua, Adonai, it is good for us to be here. If you will, let us make here 3 tabernacles, one for you, one for Moshe, and one for Elias.
Right. Everybody had their own thought of the way they think things should go. And no matter whether they are apostles or priests, Yahweh don't care nothing about what you think. Go ahead.
While he yet spake, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and behold, a voice out of the cloud, which said, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear you him.
Right, now, reading this, you don't get the thing. While he yet spake, while he says, let us make 3 tabernacles, one for you, one for Moshe, one for Elias. While he yet spoke, while he's in the middle of saying this, then here comes this voice. This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear you him. Go ahead.
And when the disciples heard it, they fell on their face and were sore afraid.
Right. And that the same thing happened when Yahweh spoke to Moshe? They took off running. So why do people think it's some strange thing that the Samaritan woman even though she was nowhere amongst the Yehudis, she was still looking for a Messiah. They said, we know that Messiah's come. So, this is the Yahweh spoke. You didn't see, Yahshua didn't take off run. Read the next one.
And Yahshua came and touched them and said, Arise, and be not afraid.
Same thing Moshe did. Y'all come back, come back. Yahweh just want to, so, his fear would be before your faces so you'll learn to keep his law. Come back. They're like, absolutely not. You talk to him, and you come tell us. We don't want to talk to him no more. I don't know what that was, but I don't ever want to see it again. I don't ever want to see that again. You talk to him, and then you come tell us. Yet today, everybody say they talk to God. I talked to God last night. I talked to God last night. I talked to God last night. Really? All these people take off running. These people be so afraid, they hit the dirt. Yet folks just driving in their cars, talking to God. When you wreck your little piece of car, if a real voice feel like it come out of your trunk. He's like, where are you going? Right. Folks playing these games. Acts chapter 1. Acts chapter 1, and we're going to read verses 4 through 7.
Verse 4. And being assembled together with them, commanded them that they should not depart from Jerusalem, but wait for the promise of the Father, which, saith he, you have heard of me. For Johannan truly baptized with water, but you shall be baptized with the Holy Ghost not many days from hence.
Now, the book of Acts is the first years of the church. So these are these deeds that were done. So understand what's happening here. Go ahead.
When they therefore were come together, they asked of him, saying, Adonai, will you at this time restore again the kingdom to Israel?
Now, you see why the people were already looking for a Messiah? See, the only people that are looking for a Messiah are people who have been trodden down. Jerusalem was under Roman occupying and rulership. They wanted to know, are you going to get these Romans out of here? Have you come at this time to restore the kingdom to Israel? They're living in the land, but they're not in control of it. This is how they also control the fake priests. The priests who are now in charge, you have Herod in charge. He was an Edomite. He was, being then of Edom, he was Hebrew, but not Hebrew Israelite. So when you understand this term that is used in 2 Corinthians 11, verse 22, are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. This is why we are Hebrew Israelites. It's different from being Hebrew. It's a difference. Go ahead.
And he said unto them, It is not for you to know the times or the seasons which the Father has put in his own power.
It is not for you. So he did not tell them that they were going to be restored, but they were looking for a Messiah. They were being ruled over. Let's go to our 2 Kings chapter 17. So when you deal with those three branches of government, Yehudah, Benjamin, and Levi, those are three tribes who then make up the house of Yehudah. The house of Yehudah comes from three tribes: Yehudah, Benjamin, and Levi. So the difference between a house and a tribe, a house contains several. That's why then you have them divided into two nations. They then call them Yehudah, and the other house Israel or Ephraim, dealing with those other 9 tribes. Or they will say Beta Israel. So understand, what's going on and how those tribes did make up the house. 2 Kings chapter 17, and we're going to start that at verse 1.
In the 12th year of Ahijah, king of Yehudah, began Hoshea the son of Elah to reign in Samaria over Israel 9 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of Yahweh, but not as the kings of Israel that were before him. Against him came up Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, and Hoshea became his servant.
2 Kings chapter 17. Go ahead.
And gave him presents. And the king of Assyria found conspiracy in Hoshea, for he had sent messengers to So king of Egypt, and brought no present to the king of Assyria, as he had done year by year. Therefore the king of Assyria shut him up, and bound him in prison. Then the king of Assyria came up throughout all the land, and went up to Samaria, and besieged it 3 years. In the 9th year of Hoshea the king of Assyria, took Samaria, and carried Israel away into Assyria, and placed them in Halah and in Habor by the river of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes. For so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against Yahweh their Elohim, which had brought them up out of the land of Egypt, from under the hand of Pharaoh king of Egypt, and had feared other gods, and walked in the statutes of the heathen, whom Yahweh cast out from before the children of Israel, and of the kings of Israel, which they had made.
You have to understand that our people are spread about in every country. They still have people of our country, of our nation, amongst the Arabs, because there was an Arab slave trade before there was a transatlantic slave trade. And do you know that they are still being called by these proverbs and bywords to this day? They're being called names in Arabic that means slave. And and they're spread out everywhere. So in every last one of these things, this is the one thing. If anybody claims to be Israel in the flesh, the one thing you should be able to produce is a captivity. See, you learn the punishment of Yahweh for not doing right is captivity. See, dealing with the things that happen as far as the persecution of Christ, that's a Roman punishment. The Romans punished like that. See, the part that Yahweh deals with was captivities, and we're going to prove that. Go ahead.
Verse 9. And the children of Israel did secretly those things that were not right against Yahweh their Elohim. And they built them high places in all their cities, from the tower of the watchman to the fenced city. And they set them up images and groves in every high hill, and under every green tree. And there they burnt incense in all the high places, as did the heathen whom Yahweh carried away before them, and wrought wicked things to provoke Yahweh to anger. For they serve idols, whereof Yahweh had said unto them, You shall not do this thing. Yet Yahweh testified against Israel, and against Yehudah, by all the prophets and by all the seers, saying, Turn you from your evil ways, and keep my commandments and my statutes, according to all the law which I commanded your fathers, and which I sent to you by my servants the prophets. Notwithstanding, they would not hear, but hardened their necks, like to the neck of their fathers, that did not believe in Yahweh their Elohim.
All right, jump to verse 24. So now, as it is written in the Torah, when you don't do these things, then you're going to suffer the punishment of captivity. Verse 24.
And the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon, and from Cuthath, and from Ava, and from Hamath, and from Sepharvaim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. And they possessed Samaria, and dwelt in the cities thereof.
Right. So once again, you then see that there are other people brought into the land of Israel. The children of Israel cast out of it, and strangers brought into it. So when people start to ask you, and they start to believe that the children of Israel have been over there for centuries, then you can go in the book and show that that's not true. You can go in Ezra, and you can go into other places. You can go and read the story of Esther, and see where the other people converted and became Jews or became Yehudis after the events that took place. So when people speak of these things, you need to know that you can go in the 2 Kings and find where the children of Israel were pulled out of the land and other people were put into it. Go ahead.
Verse 25. And so it was at the beginning of their dwelling there that they feared not Yahweh. Therefore Yahweh sent lions among them, which slew some of them. Wherefore they spake to the king of Assyria, saying, The nations which you have removed and placed in the cities of Samaria know not the manner of the Elohim of the land. Therefore he had sent lions among them, and, behold, they slay them, because they know not the manner of the Elohim of the land. Then the king of Assyria commanded, saying, Carry thither one of the priests whom you brought from thence, and let them go and dwell there, and let him teach them the manner of the Elohim of the land.
Right. So if you want to know then how the people in the land learned the ways, then they were sent a priest to teach them how to behave in the land just enough so they won't get killed. Go ahead. Not in righteousness, just enough. Go ahead.
Verse 28. Then one of the priests whom they had carried away from Samaria came and dwelt in Bethel, and taught them how they should fear Yahweh. Howbeit every nation made gods of their own, and put them in the houses of the high places which the Samaritans had made, every nation in their cities wherein they dwelt. And the men of Babylon made Succoth-Benoth, and the men of Cuth made Nergal, and the men of Hamath made Eshima. And the Ivites made Nibhaz and Tartak, and the Sepharvites burnt their children in the fire to Adramelech and Anamelech, the gods of Sepharvaim. So they feared Yahweh, and made unto themselves of the lowest of them priests of the high places, which sacrificed for them in the house of the high places. They feared Yahweh, and served their own gods, after the manner of the nations whom they carried away from thence.
Right. And it was the same way during the time of Christ. Herod, who built the last temple, was an Edomite. And when John Hyrcanus conquered Idumea, he required that all Idumeans, which are Edomites, follow this law of the Yehudis. So Herod was raised dealing, at least on the outside, with the custom of the Yehudis, but committed many murders and wicked acts. So publicly, he was one of the Yehudis in observation, while privately he did whatever he wanted. This was what was already set up by the fake priest. Show on the outside that you are a Yehudi, but while lying, stealing, cheating, murdering, doing whatever it is, but publicly you show this thing. So this was not just something that was taking place just at that time. Now, with the constant rebellion against being occupied and ruled over, it caused the Yehudis to be finally invaded by Titus. Over 1 million of the Yehudis were killed, and the rest were sold to work in the salt mines of Africa as slaves. This is documented by the historian Josephus in the Antiquities of the Jews and the Wars of the Jews. And the History Channel quotes these constantly. We have this book. These things are documented in world history. You have to then ask yourself, how is it that you never hear? What we hear of constantly is a Holocaust. There was 1.1 million people in 70 AD that were killed. You have any idea what that would be? The equivalent of people? It wasn't that many people. People have, I was watching a documentary that said 100 years ago, there were 1 billion people on the earth. Now there's 6 billion people on the earth. Do you understand how many people that was for them to kill over 1 million people? These are Romans that came in, killed over 1 million, sold the rest to work in the salt mines of Africa. So this explains how the true children of Israel got down into Africa. You need to be able to articulate that out of your own words. You need to be able to show where these things took place. Let's go into Judges chapter 3. So you need to understand that Yahweh's form of punishment is captivity. So like I said before, anybody who claims to be the children of Israel of the flesh and not by conversion needs to be able to show some form of captivity that they've gone through. So we have not, we didn't get spread out throughout the globe by our own will. We have no passport. Passport is for people who go on their free will. We didn't have passports. Cargo don't need passport. Passengers need passport. Cargo does not need a passport. Rattle that one around for a little bit. Judges chapter 3, and let's read verses 1 through 8.
Now these are the nations which Yahweh left to prove Israel by them, even as many of Israel as had not known all the wars of Canaan. Only that the generations of the children of Israel might know, to teach them war, at the least such as before knew nothing thereof. Namely, 5 masters of the Philistines, and all the Canaanites, and the Sidonians, and the Hivites that dwelt in Mount Lebanon, from Mount Baal-Hermon unto the entering in of Hamath.
Understand that Jerusalem is located on the tip of Africa. Who was there? It was called Canaan land because that was who lived there before. When you do the research of who Canaan is, we understand that they are Hamites, that they are of the burnt-faced people. So understand who was there first. Because of their wickedness, Yahweh then said he's going to have them put out of the land, and then the children of Israel will take that land over. So now Yahweh says, to prove Israel, I'm going to leave some of them there to see whether or not they're going to serve me. There are some things that are left among your lives to see whether or not you can still serve Yahweh with it in there. Read.
Verse 4. And they were to prove Israel by them, to know whether they would hearken unto the commandments of Yahweh, which he commanded their fathers by the hand of Moshe. And the children of Israel dwelt among the Canaanites, Hittites, and Amorites, and Perizzites, and Hivites, and Jebusites. And they took their daughters to be their wives, and gave their daughters to their sons, and served their gods.
The very thing that we were told not to do. But see, you have people that'll say, well, Yahweh said it was a sin for the man to marry, but not the woman, so therefore it is, you can still be Jewish through the mother. Lie, lie, lie. He said, what did it say? Your sons shall not go unto their daughters, and your daughters shall you not give to their son. Does that not cover all of us? So how you going to be Jewish through the mother? It's a straight lie. This is what happens when you can't go by the Torah, or you find things in the Torah that don't agree with your lifestyle, then you have to make up oral law. Oral is just somebody talking. And you'll notice one thing. People will say anything to justify the mess. You should read some of that oral law. I advise you not to read it out loud because it's not PG-13. Go ahead.
Verse 7. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of Yahweh, and forgot Yahweh their Elohim, and served Baalim and the groves. Therefore the anger of Yahweh was hot against Israel, and he sold them into the hand of Cushan-Ishurthem, king of Mesopotamia, and the children of Israel served Cushan-Rishathaim 8 years.
All right, so Yahweh angry, they had to serve 8 years. Jump to chapter 4, verses 1 through 3.
Chapter 4 and verse 1. And the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of Yahweh, when Ehud was dead.
Right. Yahweh raised up a judge who then judged Israel. All the time that judge was alive, they followed Yahweh's commandments. As soon as that man, who they obviously could see that the spirit was among him, once that man died, they went back to doing whatever it was they were doing. Go ahead.
And Yahweh sold them into the hand of Jabin, king of Canaan, that reigned in Hazor, the captain of whose host was Sisera, which dwelt in Harosheth of the Gentiles. And the children of Israel cried unto Yahweh, for he had 900 chariots of iron, and 20 years he mightily oppressed the children of Israel.
20 years of captivity. Jump to chapter 6. You see how it should be impossible for somebody who calls themselves true children, the true children of Israel, to not be able to produce a captivity? Judges 6 and verse 1.
And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of Yahweh, and Yahweh delivered them into the hand of Midian 7 years.
7 years. Jump to chapter 10 and verse 1. So right now, just in the book of Judges, we have 8 years of captivity, 20 years of captivity, and 7 years of captivity. And they're not all behind each other. There are periods of them being free for a long term after they have a judge that rose up and executed judgment. So there's different generations in between this. Chapter 10 and verse 1.
And after Abimelech there arose to defend Israel Tola the son of Pur, the son of Dodo, a man of Issachar, and he dwelt in Shemerah in Mount Ephraim. And he judged Israel 23 years, and died, and was buried in Shemerah.
Right. So he judged Israel this time. So Israel is doing what they're supposed to be doing. Go ahead.
And after him arose Yair, a Gileadite, and judged Israel 22 years.
Mm-hmm.
And he had 30 sons that rode on 30 ass colts, and they had 30 cities, which are called Havoth Yair, unto this day, which are in the land of Gilead.
Mm-hmm.
And Yair died, and was buried in Canaan.
So 2 judges back to back, they did what they were supposed to do. So what? 23 years and then 22 years. Go ahead.
And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of Yahweh, and served Baalim, and Ashtaroth, and the gods of Syria, and the gods of Zidon, and the gods of Moab, and the gods of the children of Ammon, and the gods of the Philistines, and forsook Yahweh, and served not him.
Right. So even after all that time, as soon as Israel is left alone, here we go serving everybody God. We love everybody else God. Why? Because they make little festivals for their God. They do the same thing today. They're called holidays. You tell people you don't keep Christmas, I feel so sorry for you. Because they have made their little Christmas into a festival. Yeah, it's a festival for Satan. But they say they feel sorry for you. We are told these groves, that's their Christmas trees right there. And they put their gifts under it, so you have to bow down to that tree to get that gift out from under it. They still worshiping the tree. Go ahead.
Verse 7. And the anger of Yahweh was hot against Israel, and he sold them into the hands of the Philistines, and into the hands of the children of Ammon. And that year they vexed and oppressed the children of Israel 18 years, all the children of Israel that were on the other side Jordan in the land of the Amorites, which is in Gilead.
Right. So just grabbing a few of them. We have 8 years of captivity, 20 years of captivity, 7 years of captivity, then 18 years of captivity. So you learn then Yahweh's form of punishment is captivity. We can find captivities in our history. Anybody who claims to be Israel should be able to find one in theirs. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 28. And we're going to read verses 1 through 2.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 1. And it shall come to pass, if you shall hearken diligently unto the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, to observe and to do all his commandments which I command you this day, that Yahweh your Elohim will set you on high above all nations of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And all these blessings shall come on you and overtake you if you shall hearken unto the voice of Yahweh your Elohim.
And this is all anybody wants to deal with, the blessings of Israel. But here's the other part. Jump to verse 15.
But it shall come to pass, if you will not hearken unto the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command you this day, that all these curses shall come upon you and overtake you.
Now, it is very well understood that all of these things were not done. So, if anybody claims to be Israel, then these things they should be able to find as well. Let's just read a few of them. Jump to verse 25 through 26.
Yahweh shall cause you to be smitten before your enemies. You shall go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them, and shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth.
Shall be removed into all kingdoms of the earth. Understand, cargo does not need a passport. Go ahead.
And your carcass shall be meat unto all fowls of the air, and unto the beasts of the earth, and no man shall fray them away.
Right. There was a song called Strange Fruit, where our people was hung from those trees during this slavery here, and they didn't come and get them off the tree. They let the birds pick from them as a sign. See, that's one of the barbarian things of the Gentile wars, where they killed men and left them hanging as a warning unto other people. If you did anything, this is what would happen to you. So they would hang our people and then leave them dangling on the trees for people to just walk by and see. Go ahead.
Which went right along with what Yahweh said, because we were under a curse, and he said, curses any man that hangs on a tree.
Right. Go ahead.
Verse 30. You shall betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. You shall build an house, and you shall not dwell therein. You shall plant a vineyard, and shall not gather the grapes thereof.
Right. In slavery, they didn't care nothing about who you married. They cared about who would make the bigger slaves or the best servant. So they made it with whoever they wanted to, or they picked to make whoever they wanted, because that would make a better slave. And whoever they wanted to go in unto, they went in unto. You betroth a wife, betroth a wife that you're going to marry her. Slave master didn't care nothing about that. But how is it that no one else can show this in their history? This is in the Torah. If you only believe in the Torah, you should be able to go inside and out of this Torah and show these things in your history. Keep going.
Your ox shall be slain before your eyes, and you shall not eat thereof. Your ass shall be violently taken away from before your face, and shall not be restored you. Your sheep shall be given unto your enemies, and you shall have none to rescue them. Your sons and your daughters shall be given unto another people, and your eyes shall look and fill with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in your hand.
Right. When we use the term brother or sister, it is a term of endearment. For our families were spread apart, and the question would be, is that really your brother or your sister? You have no idea. There are some times that the family was split apart, and it was only 5, 6, 7 miles in between where they were. But it wasn't like they could walk the 7 miles to go see them. So once they left that plantation, they were never seen again. So you see somebody 30 years later, and it looked like somebody that could be your brother, that could be your sister. So when we say brother or sister, it is a term of endearment. It has meaning. Jump to verse 36.
Yahweh shall bring you, and your king which you shall set over you, unto a nation which neither you nor your fathers have known, and there shall you serve other gods, wood and stone.
Right. So if anybody tries to claim that they know of the Egyptian captivity and that was them, Yahweh said, understand, these things are being given after the Egyptian captivity. Understand that. So you can't claim that one after this is being given. Yahweh shall bring you and your king, which you shall set over you, unto a nation which you nor your sons, you nor your fathers have not known. We didn't know anything about this place. They knew Egypt. They walked down to Egypt constantly. We find them going to Egypt before Before Israel had even been established, they were going down into Egypt. They went down to Egypt to buy corn. Go ahead.
Verse 37. And you shall become an astonishment, a proverb and a byword among all nations where the Yahweh shall lead you.
African American is a proverb. It is a byword. It's got a hyphen in it. Afro American, black. These are all terms, and everywhere we are scattered, there is a derogatory term used to define us. In all countries, there's one. And we don't consider those things. Even this thing of being called a Jew, this is one of their terms that we have had to take on. We have all of these things, but it was Yahweh that said you're going to be a proverb and a byword. You had the opportunity for none of that to happen to you if you did what you were supposed to do. Jump to verse 47.
Because you serve not Yahweh your Elohim with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things, therefore shall you serve your enemies, which Yahweh shall send against you.
Right. Because you would not serve Yahweh, now you have to serve your enemy. I keep telling y'all, Israel was created to be a servant. You gonna serve somebody. Now, you can either choose that to be Yahweh or you can serve a man. But you're gonna serve somebody. Israel was created for that purpose. Go ahead.
In hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon your neck until he have destroyed you.
And the only group of people that I've ever seen with any pictures of a yoke of iron around their neck is this so-called African American. The slaves that came out of that transatlantic slave trade, where they were so barbaric that they put that yoke of iron around your neck and made you plow a field like an animal. Nobody else can show any depictions, not anything carved on the side of a mountain, not anything that depicts anything like this other than us. Go ahead.
Yahweh shall bring a nation against you from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue you shall not understand.
We did not speak this language when we got here, and understand, this America uses eagle as the eagle as their symbol, and so did the Romans. Herod had an eagle put in front of the temple, so he could just show them, look, I'm down with the Yehudis. Not really, though. So he made sure he put the Roman symbol there, letting them know that this thing is just for show. Go ahead.
Verse 50. A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young.
Right, and they did not hear anything about an old slave or a young slave. You were a slave. Jump to verse 64.
Verse 64. And Yahweh shall scatter you among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other.
Right, so here's your clue. The children of Israel cannot return to Israel from one place. Need you to rattle that around for a minute. Just put it in the cage and shake it up. He has scattered Israel all over the earth. They will not come from one place and just pow, they in Israel, and pow, they're a nation. That does not add up. It does not fit the Torah. Go ahead.
And there you shall serve other gods, which neither you nor your fathers have known, even wood and stone.
Wood and stone. Wood would be that cross. The stone would be Islam. For their holy site is the dome or the rock or the asteroid that fell from heaven. These are the things that plague our people today. Christianity and Islam, the two biggest religions that we are doing now, going against Yahweh's word. Go ahead.
And among these nations shall you find no ease.
No ease. We've been over here 400 something years, and what? We still going through, we're still getting shot in the back in broad daylight. They ain't even got sense enough to wait till it get dark to shoot us. They shoot us and in the middle of the sun. You know? It don't matter, because they know the court's going to be on their side. You know how many people have been shot down by the police? This has been going on. Our people get to a point where something happens and we call our cousin. We don't want to call the police. We get shot more by them than we do by other people. And we know they're going to get off. So they treat you nasty, and the black police just as bad as the other ones. They half the time, black police are worse than the white one. Because they realize, I can slam you 19 different kind of ways, and they ain't going to say nothing to me. Nothing's going to happen to him on the street. Ain't nothing going to happen to him at his job. So that sometimes they are the worst with this power. But this, nobody else can show this but us. But understand, it's talking about these curses. You notice that it didn't say anything about he was going to throw you into a gas chamber? Read.
Neither shall the sole of your foot have rest, but Yahweh shall give you there a trembling heart and failing of eyes and sorrow of mind. And your life shall hang in doubt before you, and you shall fear day and night, and shall have non-assurance of your life.
They tell people, they said, well, you saw the police, why did you run? Because I saw the police. Well, if you didn't do nothing wrong, why did you run? Because I'm black, and he's a police. So that doesn't make any sense. Don't make no sense because you're not black. They shoot people that look like me for no reason whatsoever. When you can chase down a 50-year-old man and shoot him in the... What the 50-year-old man, what kind of harm he was going to do? What kind of... So you were so threatened by... You were threatened by him as he ran away? 50-year-old man? And if it wasn't for the video, it still would be free just like that. Only because of a video. So we are guilty until proven innocent. But what does this Torah say? You shall be punished 7 times more for your sins. Go ahead.
Verse 67. In the morning you shall say, would Elohim it were even, and at even you shall say, would Elohim it were morning. For the fear of your heart wherewith you shall fear, and for the sight of your eyes which you shall see. And Yahweh shall bring you into Egypt again with ships.
Yahweh shall bring you into Egypt again with ships. Egypt is bondage with ships. How did we get here? They walked down into Africa before, into Egypt before. So it wasn't any ships that brought them. It was ships that brought us here. You turn over that dollar and you're going to see an Egyptian pyramid with the all-seeing eye of Horus, an Egyptian god. If this is a Christian country, why do they have an Egyptian god on the back of the most circulated denomination of currency? Yahweh said, I will send you into Egypt again with ships. Go ahead.
By the way whereof I spake unto you, you shall see it no more again. And there you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
When it says buy you, you have to look that up and say that it says redeem. You shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall redeem you. These are the things that we had to undergo here. Now, as our people were forced out of our homeland into Africa, our people, of course, assimilated into other cultures while keeping some of our customs. When we read about the Moors, we find that they were a mingled group of people from the Arab dynasty that fought and eventually mingled with the Berbers and fought with them as well. We must not forget that there was an Arab slave trade and that some of our people are still amongst the Arabs today. Even after all these years, they're still called by proverbs in Arabic for slaves. These Moors ruled over Spain for about 800 years. Their rule ended in 1492. Today, there are rituals called running with the bulls. The real history behind this is to celebrate the Spaniards running the Moors or the black bulls out of their country. The term Moor came to be defined as anything dark. Keep in mind that these things happened among the Spanish and Portuguese. After Spain regained control of their country, they financed, along with the Portuguese and Dutch, the transatlantic slave trade. This would be the final blow to the people that once ruled over them by getting the rest of their people who had been removed from Israel and pushed into lower Africa. The Africans knew who they were selling. They only sold Africans when they ran out of our people to sell. So understand what took place. These Moors ruled for all this time over the Spanish. Then you have them that financed the transatlantic slave trade. Here's a hint. You were first called Negro. Negro is a Spanish word for black. He said, Yahweh shall bring you into Egypt again with ships. Spanish ships. You were called by a Spanish name. That had to change, because eventually, if you kept doing some research, you would find out some things. Why would I be called by a Spanish name? There are some things that would not add up. But let us hear the conclusion of this matter. Let's go to Yoel chapter 3. The prophet Yoel chapter 3, and we're going to read verses 1 through 6. Go ahead, bro.
What year was it they said that Christopher Columbus discovered America?
I don't remember that line.
Huh? 1492. And if you read the history, it says that Columbus was there in Spain when the last of the Moors were being kicked out.
So he was commissioned to do a job. He knew what he was doing. Half of the time, it's our folk that end up bringing them where they was going. So then they would turn around and use all of that against us. So this is why you have people understand. Our people were already doing travel. Do you understand how long that was? The Moors ruled over Spain in about 711 to 1492, basically building everything that they have. So there are mingled bits of our people that are there. They call like Morenos and all of these things. These are black Spanish people. And understand, when they talk about why the Inquisition was even allowed to come there, they wanted to go ahead and kill off the rest of the Moors who were keeping anybody who kept any so-called Jewish tradition or any of those things. They were forced to convert or die. So that was the whole thing of the Spanish Inquisition. The reason they even let it come in, let's get rid of the rest of the influence of these Moors. So as our people were scattered about, some ended up assimilating into other cultures, joining with some other people, and began conquering or doing some other things. They will never tell you what running with the bulls really is. You have to read about 5 or 6 different things before a real admission of what running with the bulls is. And if you look, they'll show you people getting gored and killed by the bulls. Well, understand, they went against the Moors, a lot of people got killed. So they say, hey, this is just a true depiction of what happened. You run up against the bull, you get the horns. A few of you might die. But the whole thing is not running with the bulls, it's running the bulls out. That's what this thing is. So when you put all of that together, you understand what's going on here, and then you understand this last part that we're about to read. Yoel chapter 3, and let's read verses 1 through 6.
For, behold, in those days and in that time, When I shall bring again the captivity of Yehudah and Jerusalem,
Okay, when it says I shall bring again the captivity, that means cause the captivity to cease. I'm going to bring again the captivity of Yehudah and Jerusalem. Now, look at what happens in the same time as that's going on. Go ahead.
I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat.
All right. So now we're talking about this great battle of Armageddon then. We've read about this battle. This battle is written of several places among the prophets and in the New Testament as well. So, I'm going to slow this down for you. In those days, verse 1, when I shall bring again the captivity, cause the captivity of Yehudah and Jerusalem to cease, I will also gather all nations. Wait a minute. I need you to think about that back to back. The children of Israel will not be freed until he's getting ready to gather all the nations. Okay, let me slow that down for you a little bit more. There is already a nation of people calling themselves Israel, but yet he has not gathered all nations to war. Okay, let me slow that down a little bit more. Okay, so what I'm saying is, it is not possible for Israel to already be set up as a nation because these things have not happened. Okay, was that slow enough? All right, go ahead.
And will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations.
Whom they have scattered among the nations. So he's going to have to go around the nations and pick these people up. They cannot come from one place and zip tang. They got a nation. Not gonna happen, Captain. It's not according to what's written in here. So somebody lying. A lot of somebody's lying. Go ahead.
And parted my land. And they have cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for an harlot, and sold a girl for wine, that they might drink.
Understand, the Africans sold us for gifts, for trinkets. Man, we saw the book of Negroes. They were selling them for wine and rum. Go ahead.
Yea, and what have you to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon?
Remember we just read about the Zidonians and all of those, the people that were in the land first, Canaanites. You read that, they are Hamites, the people who we call Africans. Keep going.
And all the coast of Palestine? Will you render me a recompense? And if you recompense me, swiftly and speedily will I return your recompense upon your own head. Because you have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things. The children also of Yehudah and the children of Jerusalem have you sold on to the Grecians.
Now, pause. Can anybody else find anywhere in history where Africans, Zidonians, have sold any other people to the Greeks, the Grecians, the Gentiles? We can produce it in our history. The Africans, see, what they first told you in school was some people went over there with some cloth and some stuff, and they just threw it down, and you were so stupid, you was like, ooh, cloth. And you grabbed the cloth, and they just dropped the cage on you and just threw you in the boat. And you believed it, because you didn't have no other story. In the absence of any truth, the lie prevails. But it was always strange to people. How like 20 people get like 20,000 people at one time? What? Because you was already in chains when they got here. See? Remember when Bush came to office and they thought he was going to apologize for slavery, and he said to Africa, we both had our part in the slavery thing. And some people got upset. I thought it was absolutely wonderful. Because he told the truth. Look, we didn't steal no people. We didn't steal nothing. We still got the receipt. We bought them. And this was business. And they do still have the receipt. If you research it, you will find the receipts of, they have shipping manifests of how many slaves were on the boat when it started and how many slaves were on the boat when it arrived. And you find large discrepancies in those numbers, because as those people got sick and they caused problems, they threw them people off the boat. As people who start fighting, they threw them people off the ship. And we know that because of their shipping manifest, because it is cargo. Cargo is counted. Go ahead, bro.
Thus the advent of insurance.
They would insure the things. Very, very good point, bro. Go ahead.
That you might remove them far from their border. Behold, I will raise them out of the place whither you have sold them, and will return your recompense upon your own head.
Go ahead.
And I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hand of the children of Yehudah, and they shall sell them to the Sabaeans.
Right. So we look at the restoration of the children of Israel, and it is joined with the judgment of the Gentile nations for the things that have come among the children of Israel. So we see that these things happen together. So to have Israel, you have the setting up of the true children of Israel going along with this Armageddon or battle judgment of the Gentile nations. What we have is a nation of Israel set up by the Gentile nations. Does anybody think that's strange other than me? That does not fit anything in this book. So understand, this is your history and you need to be able to tell it, because the lie is widely publicized. When you are the owners of the media, you can put out what stories you want. So your story is not told. You need to be able to tell your own story. Go ahead, bro.
No, I just wanted to say the way how you began the sermon by saying how, we not knowing where we're going to be as far as, and just being able to know what we need to, just being able to know what we have to speak about dealing with the truth and dealing with the word. Because truly, we don't know where we are going to be when things go down.
Correct.
So truly we need to know all that we need to know, to make it, to make other people understand.
Right. You have to be able to say these things on your own, because if Yahweh has called you, the last thing I thought is that I was going to be a priest. I was happy being under my priest. I was happy with him. Yahweh didn't come and ask me, what you think about me calling this brother to die? Yeah, he didn't ask me how I felt about it. The man died. He didn't ask me what I think, what I felt, what I believe. So, how you feel about teaching? He asked me what I felt about teaching.
No, I do music.
What he did was assaulted me until I started teaching. That's what he did. Right. And if he call you, you can run and hide, and you can hide behind little blue chairs. I did that before. You can do all that you want to do. But if he call you to do a job, you're going to either do that job walking on both of your feet or limping with one of them. But you're going to do that job. So, get the word. You ain't got to understand why you getting it or what you getting it. Just get the word. What Yahweh calls you for, he'll explain in due time. But you just get the word. That's all that we're going to do for today. And like I said, keep your notes. You will have questions on this sermon. Not today, but you will have questions on this sermon. As I said, you will have questions on this sermon. Remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.